Okay, here's the second part of chapter 12. So cerebral hemispheres, we'll look at the white matter next because we just focused on the gray matter in the last one. So remember, it's white because they're myelinated and those are fatty. And there's different directions that they run: association, commissural, and projection fibers. Oops. Okay, so association fibers are horizontal. They connect different parts of the same hemisphere, and then commissural fibers connect gray matter of the two hemispheres together. And then projection fibers connect from the lower brain to the, from the hemispheres to the lower brain or to the spinal cord. So those are some different types of fibers that run in different ways. So you can see them located here. Let's see here. Association fibers are pink, so within a hemisphere. Commissural fibers are the green ones between hemispheres, and then projection fibers are just from hemispheres down to lower regions or the spinal cord. And then here's another look at them, so that should make sense. Okay, 3 different regions of the cerebrum. There's the caudate nucleus, putamen, and the globus pallidus. So here is the caudate nucleus, the putamen, and then the thalamus is right here. And then this is the tail of the caudate nucleus. Okay, so basal nuclei. They think that they influence muscle movements, help with cognition and emotion, intensity of slow or stereotype movements, filter out correct or inappropriate responses, antagonistic or unnecessary movements. And they know this because they know these functions might be it, because if you have disorder in them like Parkinson's or Huntington's, they know what they do. Okay, so that's where they're located there. So if they see a disorder in those areas, those are the symptoms. They can tell what those functions probably are. Okay, diencephalon is composed of the thalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus. We saw that in the last section. And remember the third ventricle. These are all around the third ventricle. So let's see. So right here is the hypothalamus, and then this part right here, purple, is the thalamus, and then the epithalamus is right here. So this all, kind of the heart of the brain, is the diencephalon. And there is a real brain, so you can see the different parts. So it definitely doesn't look colored like our pictures. Okay, so the thalamus is an egg-shaped nucleus, and it's most of the diencephalon. It was that big egg-shaped thing that you just saw. So right here looks like an egg. It's 2 parts, like 2 eggs kind of. And you can see it has all these different parts to it inside. So the thalamus is a relay. So you can think of, like, those old telephone operators where they had to move the cords and relay the information. That's like the switchboard, right? That's what the thalamus does. It sorts, edits, relays information to figure out where in the brain does this information need to go. So impulses from hypothalamus for emotion and visceral function, impulses from cerebellum and basal nuclei for motor stuff, and then impulses for memory and sensory integration. So it decides where that information goes. And you can tell that this is a pretty important structure, and that's why it's like right in the heart of the brain, protected. Hypothalamus is right below the thalamus. Hypo means under. It has mammillary bodies. It has an infundibulum, which is a little skinny stalk that's going to connect it to the pituitary, because those work together a lot. So what are we looking at here? Here's that stalk, the infundibulum, and then this right here is the pituitary, and then up here this is the hypothalamus and the thalamus above. Okay, so the hypothalamus it does visceral control, like your insides, and helps with homeostasis. So it controls your autonomic nervous system. It controls blood pressure, heartbeat, digestive tract, pupil size, and it also helps with the limbic system, perceives pleasure, fear, rage, biological rhythms, and sex drive. It also regulates body temperature, sweating and shivering, hunger, And fullness, satiety, or water balance and thirst, sleep-wake cycles, all of those things happen in the hypothalamus. So very important, also in the heart of the brain, right? Also works with the pituitary in doing endocrine functions. So if you have a disorder in your hypothalamus, it can cause body wasting, obesity, sleep disturbances, dehydration, emotional imbalances. Problems can be caused by tumors, trauma, surgery. So it's a really important part of the brain, and a lot of things can happen if there's something wrong. Okay, epithalamus is dorsal to the diencephalon, or the dorsal part, sorry, of the diencephalon. And one of the things it has in it is the pineal gland, and that secretes melatonin, which helps you with your sleep-wake cycle. And now people are taking that. And there was a new study that came out about if you take melatonin, you might want to look up that study. It's a good example of correlation versus causation. I think it's with melatonin and heart disease. It may not mean that one thing causes the other, but they found a link between whatever it was, melatonin and I think heart disease or whatever. Okay, so anyway, right here's the epithalamus. That includes the pineal gland. Hypothalamus is here, thalamus is here, and then the pituitary gland is right here. And the pituitary gland is your master gland, right? Okay. Now we're going to look at the brain stem and the diencephalon. So right up here is the diencephalon, the two eggs, the thalamus, right? Hypothalamus is right in there. This here is the optic tract for your vision. And then you have optic nerve right here and optic chiasma where those split. And then, let's see, this is the pons. So this is part of the brain stem. And then it goes down into the spinal cord right there. So this is right where we're located. So they kind of tie together. Your diencephalon and your brainstem kind of tie together. And then here's a lateral view. So right here's your pons. And then your brainstem. I'm trying to see what else we can see from here. Oh, right here's your pituitary sticking out with that little infundibulum stalk. And then your hypothalamus is right here, and your thalamus is up there. And then right here sticking out, this is the dorsal view. Sticking out back, the dorsal side is your pineal gland. Oh, right here's your midbrain. We couldn't see it from the front. This is part of your brainstem. Your midbrain's your brainstem. So green part's the brainstem. And then pons is right here in front, right? And then back here we have medulla oblongata. So we'll look at those parts next. Okay, so brainstem, super important part. It transitions from your brain into your spinal cord. It's got midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. This part of the brain is what keeps you alive. So this is also why it's way down deep in the middle of your brain. And it's got cranial nerves too that control like your whole body. So they're really important. Okay, so we kind of already saw that, but right here is your midbrain, mammillary body here, optical tract, your chiasma where it splits. So this part right here is your brainstem, right? Midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata. Okay, so midbrain is between the diencephalon and the pons, so it's kind of the top part of the brainstem. And it's got cerebral peduncles, which are little bulges. It's got gray matter. They help with this periaqueductal gray matter. It helps with pain suppression and fight or flight. And it includes cranial nerve 3 and 4. And then it's got some white matter scattered between too. And they see that when this area is degenerated, that can cause Parkinson's. There's also a red nucleus. It's a relay nucleus. Helps with motor pathways. Part of the reticular formation. Okay, so let's see here. So right here's the red nucleus, that part. So we're doing a cross section of this top part here, because that would be your midbrain. And this is the cerebral aqueduct, reticular formation. What else did we see? Oh, Cranial nerve 3 is right here. That helps you with moving your eyes. That's what cranial nerve 3 does. So, and then next is the pons. So that's like kind of in the middle of the brainstem. And if you remember the fourth ventricle, and that's where it's going to separate the pons from the cerebellum. And this is where you'll find cranial nerves 5, 6, and 7. So let's see. This is cranial nerve 5 right here. Is that the only one it's showing? Here's your fourth ventricle separating it from the cerebellum. So we're on this second cross section here, right? Reticular formation you can see. Okay, so that's that part. And then medulla oblongata, or just medulla. So this is where you're moving down into the spinal cord. And it's got different structures. It's got pyramids. And then like I'll show you in the picture, but it's got these little swellings that it kind of juts out a little bit, and it connects to the cerebellum there. And then this is where you have cranial nerves 8, 9, 10, and 12. Okay, so right here is this is where it juts out a little. Right here's the medulla. Back here is the cerebellum, so you can see that, and then it transitions into the spinal cord. And this right here is your fourth ventricle. So we said the pons, the fourth ventricle was between the pons and the cerebellum. And then here is a cross section of that. So you can see right here's the fourth ventricle, the choroid process. What else did we mention? Cranial nerve 10 is right here. Vestibular nuclei 8, cochlear nuclei 8. So all those are located there. This is another cranial nerve 12 right here. Okay, functions of the medulla oblongata. This is the autonomic reflex center. One of the main functions of the medulla oblongata is to control your heart. So force and rate of heart contraction, also determines your blood vessel diameter, helps with blood pressure too. Your medulla oblongata also regulates your respiratory centers, so controls like your rate of breathing, and also it helps regulating vomiting, hiccuping, swallowing, coughing, and sneezing. So that's all your medulla oblongata. So all these structures in your diencephalon and your brainstem, these are the structures that keep you alive. If these structures are not working, you're brain dead. Okay, then you have the cerebellum, and this is the back of your brain, back where your, like close to where your occipital lobe is, just below that. This is 11% of your brain mass, dorsal to your pons and medulla, separated by that fourth ventricle. And it helps you with balance and skeletal muscle movement. Okay, so the cerebral hemisphere looks kind of worm-like. It has folia. There's 3 lobes in it, and it also has Purkinje fibers that connect the cortex with the cerebellum. Okay, so it looks different than other brain structures. This is your brainstem. This is your fourth ventricle right in between, and then here's your cerebellum. There is another view of it, and you can see the different lobes. I don't think I pointed that out. But here's your anterior lobe, your posterior lobe, and your flocculonodular lobe right here. See, it just has different structure. Okay, so cerebellar peduncles. So the fibers are ipsilateral, so they go from and to the same side of the body. They don't cross. And then there's 3 tracts that connect the cerebellum to the brainstem. So these are the 3 tracts. And let's see if we can see them here. Yep, so these are the 3 peduncles right here that connect it from the brainstem to the cerebellum. Okay, here's some things that the cerebellum does. Receives impulses from the cerebral cortex for voluntary muscle contraction. Receives signals from proprioceptors that helps you figure out where you are in space. So body's position and momentum, where you are, where you're going. It figures out how to do smooth muscle contractions, so like smooth body movements. And so it kind of works with your cerebral cortex too, your cerebral motor cortex. So they also find that cerebellum probably plays a role in thinking, language, and emotion too. So some higher order functions, more so than the diencephalon and the brainstem. So they have this little homunculus kind of mapped on here of how the cerebellum controls parts of your body, mostly head and limbs. That's it.